Please comment where you are listening from in the world. Thank you, let's dive in. You never really believe you'll date someone dangerous. You hear stories, sure, the true crime podcasts, the Netflix documentaries, but you always think, that could never be me. That's what I thought too. Right up until Kyle. I'm Marissa. Back then, I lived in Redford Hollow, Nevada, a dusty, half-forgotten town about an hour outside of Reno, where the sunsets were blood red and the bars closed when they felt like it. I met Kyle at a 4th of July barbecue, hosted by mutual friends. He wasn't flashy, no expensive watch, no loud bragging. He wore worn jeans, a simple black t-shirt, and had a slow, easy smile that made you feel like you were the only person in the room. He didn't say much at first, just hung back by the grill, flipping burgers and laughing quietly at the louder conversations happening around him. When we finally talked, it felt natural, effortless. Kyle told me he worked in private security, a vague but not unusual job description around Redford Hollow, where a lot of guys picked up work guarding freight shipments or manning the entrances to shady desert casinos. He said he liked fishing, classic cars, and old Western movies. Nothing about him set off alarms. If anything, he seemed stable, a little reserved maybe, but solid. Someone you could build a life with. We started dating a few weeks later. Kyle was good to me, especially at first. He remembered little things, how I took my coffee, which side of the bed I preferred. He never raised his voice, never made me feel like I had to tiptoe around his moods. He was protective, too. If some guy at the bar got too close, Kyle would step between us without a word. If my car made a weird noise, Kyle would be there the next morning with a toolbox. It was the kind of attention I hadn't realized I craved. But there were rules, too. Small ones, at first. He didn't like me posting photos of us online. Said it was about privacy, about staying off the radar. He didn't want me asking too many questions about his work. Said it was better for both of us if I didn't know the details. I told myself it was fine, that he was just old-fashioned, that some mystery was healthy. I told myself a lot of things. The first real crack came about 3 months in. We were at a gas station on the edge of town when Kyle ran inside to grab something. As I waited, I noticed his glove compartment was slightly open. Without really thinking, I leaned over and nudged it closed, and caught a glimpse of what was inside. Stacks of cash. A gun I had never seen before, tucked inside a battered leather holster, and a small, spiral-bound notebook filled with names and dates. I snapped the compartment shut, so fast my knuckles scraped against the dashboard. When Kyle climbed back into the truck, he didn't say anything. But he looked at me, really looked at me like he knew exactly what had happened. The air between us turned heavy, brittle. But he just smiled that slow, easy smile and asked if I wanted to grab dinner. I said yes. What else could I do? That night, lying awake beside him, I started connecting dots I had ignored before. The way he always scanned a room before walking in. The way he sat facing the door at restaurants, eyes flicking to every new person who entered. The way he disappeared for days sometimes, claiming he was on a job, and came back looking hollowed out, exhausted. The way he never talked about his family. Never invited me to meet his friends. I told myself not to be paranoid. I told myself he loved me. I told myself, again, that he was just private. But the seed of fear had been planted, and it was growing fast. The real tipping point came a few weeks later. Kyle had left his jacket draped over the back of a chair while he showered. His phone buzzed in the pocket. I wasn't going to look. I really wasn't. But then I saw the name flash across the screen. Vince, Vegas job. And below it, a text. Target confirmed. Payment on delivery. My mouth went dry. I didn't want to believe what I was seeing. I didn't want to believe I had been sleeping next to someone who might be a killer. But deep down I knew. I had known for a while. I just hadn't let myself see it. I didn't run that night. Instinct told me that running, panicking, would be the worst thing I could do. Instead, I stayed. Smiled. Pretended nothing had changed. I kissed him goodnight. Told him I loved him. And the next morning, while he was out getting breakfast, I packed a single bag, grabbed my keys, and left. I didn't go back to my apartment. I didn't tell my friends. I didn't go to work. I drove straight to Carson City and checked into a cheap motel under a fake name. Then I got a burner phone and called my cousin, a lawyer, and told him everything. He didn't even hesitate. Get out of Nevada, he said. Now. I spent the next few weeks bouncing between Airbnbs and hotels across 3 different states. I changed my hair color, deleted my social media, cut ties with almost everyone I knew. I didn't hear from Kyle. Not directly. But one night, in a motel outside Flagstaff, I found a note slipped under my door. No envelope. No signature. Just one sentence, handwritten in block letters. You made the right choice. Stay gone. I didn't sleep that night. Or the next. Eventually, I moved even farther, across the country, to a town so small it barely appears on most maps. I started over. New name. New job. New life. Sometimes late at night, I wonder about Kyle. About what would have happened if I hadn't seen the gun, the money, the notebook. If I hadn't checked his phone that night. Would I have become collateral damage? Would I have been a loose end he needed to tie off? I'll never know. And I don't want to. All I know is that evil doesn't always come wearing a monster's face. I didn't know how quickly a dream could turn into a nightmare until I met Reed. I'm Sophie. At the time, I was 24, fresh out of college, and living in Silverwood, Maine, a tiny coastal town where everyone knew each other's grandparents and half the buildings leaned a little from the salty wind. Silverwood could be suffocating sometimes, but it was safe. Predictable. Or so I thought. I met Reed on Omegle, of all places. It was a rainy Saturday night. I was bored, lonely, and half-heartedly clicking through random chats when his face popped up. He looked normal. Cute, even messy dark hair, wire-rimmed glasses, a shy half-smile. He said he was 25, from a town about an hour away. Said he loved hiking, camping, and photography. We talked for hours that night. About books, about music, about places we wanted to travel someday. He seemed genuine. Funny without trying too hard. Interested without being creepy. We exchanged numbers before logging off. Over the next few weeks, we texted constantly. Little things at first. Memes, good morning messages, song recommendations. Then longer conversations about life, dreams, fears. He was easy to open up to. It felt like we had known each other for years instead of days. When he suggested meeting in person, it didn't seem crazy. It seemed inevitable. Reed proposed a camping trip, just a quick overnight at a public campground about 30 minutes inland, surrounded by state forest. I hesitated. Going into the woods with a guy I barely knew? Even my loneliness couldn't completely drown out that little voice of caution. But he reassured me. Said it was a well-trafficked site. Public. Safe. He even suggested we drive separately, so I could leave any time if I felt uncomfortable. It sounded reasonable. It sounded safe. I agreed. The day of the trip was bright and clear, the air crisp with early autumn. I packed light, sleeping bag, snacks, a flashlight, and met Reed at the campground entrance just before noon. He waved when he saw me, smiling wide enough that his whole face lit up. He was taller than I expected, lankier, but still had that same boyish charm. We hiked about half a mile into a designated camping area, small clearings with fire pits and picnic tables. There were a few other tents scattered around, families and couples laughing and cooking over open fires. It felt safe. It felt normal. Reed was easy company, setting up his tent, helping me with mine, joking about how bad he was at hammering in the stakes. We spent the afternoon exploring the trails, taking silly selfies, talking about everything and nothing. When the sun began to dip behind the trees, we built a fire and roasted marshmallows. It was nice. Too nice. Looking back, I realize how hard he worked to make me lower my guard. It wasn't until later, after the families had packed up their dinners, after the other campers had retreated into their tents, that things shifted. We were sitting by the dying fire, sipping cheap beer from a shared cooler, when Reed leaned closer. "Want to go for a walk?" he asked, voice low. I hesitated. The woods were dark now, shadows thick between the trees. But I didn't want to seem paranoid. Didn't want to ruin the night. "Sure," I said, forcing a smile. We grabbed our flashlights and wandered down a narrow trail, the beams of light slicing through the darkness. At first, Reed was casual, pointing out constellations through gaps in the canopy, telling funny stories about camping trips gone wrong. Then he stopped walking, turned to face me. "You're really beautiful," he said. Before I could respond, he grabbed my wrist. Not hard at first, more like a firm hold, like he didn't want me to run. Alarm bells exploded in my head. I laughed nervously, trying to pull away, but he didn't let go. "Come on," he said, voice slipping from gentle to something sharper. "I know you want this." "I think I'm gonna head back," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. He didn't move. Just tightened his grip. "Pretending you're scared? That's cute." Panic seized me. I yanked my arm back as hard as I could, stumbling a few steps away. Reed lunged. I turned and ran. The forest blurred around me, branches tearing at my clothes, roots grabbing at my ankles. I didn't know where I was going. I didn't care. I just knew I had to get away. I could hear him crashing through the underbrush behind me, cursing, calling my name. I didn't stop. Didn't look back. Somehow, miraculously, I spilled out onto the main campground trail. I sprinted toward the nearest cluster of tents, sobbing, gasping for air. A woman stepped out of a tent, flashlight in hand, face creased with concern. I choked out a desperate plea for help. Within minutes, a group of campers had gathered. Strength in numbers. When Reed stumbled out of the woods, breathing hard, he stopped short at the sight of all those witnesses. His face twisted, anger, frustration, before he turned and vanished back into the trees. Someone called 911. The police showed up about 20 minutes later, lights flashing, radios crackling. I filed a report. Gave them everything I knew, his name, his phone number, our chats. By morning, Reed's tent was abandoned. He was gone. An investigation followed, but Reed had covered his tracks well. The number he gave me was a burner. The photos he sent were old, maybe even stolen. He wasn't from the town he claimed. No one seemed to know who he really was. He just vanished. Sometimes I wonder if Silverwood was just one stop on a long, twisted road. If he had done this before. If he would do it again. The thought keeps me awake more nights than I care to admit. It's been over a year now. I don't go camping anymore. I don't meet strangers online. I don't dismiss that little voice in my head when it tells me something's wrong. Because monsters don't always roar when they come for you. I had a comically, cascadingly bad date once. It eventually got funny. Eventually. Was living in a smallish town where if you wanted to date, well, beggars can't be choosers. I was set up with this hockey bro who was pretty popular in town, but God, I can't comprehend why. It was basically like talking to Ryan Lochte. And I wasn't any better. I had just read a really good book on the Vietnam War, and raved about it, chapter by chapter, for the duration of our second date. Ugh, cringe. He could not have been any more bored. So yes, here we were, two people who wanted things to work out, but goddamn were we ever oil and water. One night we drove into the city. I thought tonight's the night, so I wore a bra that was pretty but massively uncomfortable. We're at a restaurant. I am totally changing my game and letting him do all the talking, what there was of it, and basically just fawned over him all night. I leaned forward, felt a sharp twinge, but ignored it. Eventually my side felt cold, and I noticed his sentences getting even more slower, amazingly enough, and him just looking very awkward. 15 minutes later a server comes up to me saying, "Oh my God, are you okay?" I look down, and the right side of my blouse is seeping with blood. Hockey bro had just watched in awkward silence for however long as strips of blood formed around his date's ribcage, and didn't say one word. The underwire of this motherfucking expensive bra snapped at such an angle that it pierced my skin. It didn't hurt, but just bled like the dickens. I have no idea how it drew the amount of blood that it did. It looked like I had been knifed. I kept laughing it off, and was making jokes, desperately hoping someone would laugh along. Nope. Just horrified, awkward stares. I had to take the underwire out in the bathroom, so I exited the restaurant with clumps of bloody paper towels and two very differently supported boobs. I'm a keeper. Hockey bro drives me to the medical center, says he's parking the car, and never comes back. Seriously. He abandoned me in a different city, 11 p.m. at night. He later said he came back but couldn't find me in the waiting room. Bullshit, buddy. So a few hours later, I'm bandaged up after a whopping 1 stitch. Didn't own a cell phone, so I'm in the waiting room by the payphone flipping through the white pages, wondering who on earth am I going to call. Still in my bloody shirt with injured people giving me weirded outside glances. And this guy offers to let me use Google Maps on his smartphone. I had one friend in the city, and I knew where she lived from visiting before, but I didn't know her number offhand. So I was just hoping she'd let me crash at her place for the night. I write down the Google Maps route, and I run out to catch the last bus of the evening. I catch it, fortunately. Thank God I had changed that night, I never do. And I get off at the right stop and walk the rest of the way. It's in the suburbs on the edge of the city. So I'm walking, all the streets look safe, but then the streetlights appear less and less, and suddenly I'm really at the edge of the urbanized city. What I didn't know beforehand was that Google Maps will use trails and pathways and all kinds of nature's little shortcuts as a route option. So here I am at like 1 a.m., walking through this pitch-black hiking trail through the woods, and we're talking about a relatively underdeveloped part of Canada, with just the moon, the stars, and surprisingly bright white plain contrails for light. hyperventilating thinking, this is how women get murdered. This is how women get murdered. I had a pen out for protection, using my other hand to cup my boob, because for me it hurts a bit when it's not supported. I have never in all my life been more alert and tense until that walk. I see some lights in the distance, and that's when I notice all the jackrabbits. There are tons and tons of jackrabbits, and I immediately get 10 times more nervous because where there's jackrabbits, there's coyotes. And right when I thought coyote, I heard a whine, about 15 feet away from me in the brush. I knew that there were houses under the hills, but that whine sure as fuck sounded right there. It was so comical. The timing was movie perfect. I immediately sprint like a bat out of hell towards the lights. And I'm no runner, so my wee little heart is just giving her. I broke through the trees, and up ahead amid darkened auto shop buildings and industrial factories was the beaming glow of a 24-hour Tim Hortons. And then it was funny. All of it, the whole night, was just hysterical to me. I stumbled inside. The poor cashiers just blinked at me. I looked like I had been assaulted and left for dead. I straightened myself out, told the story, and we all had a good laugh. I ended up staying most of the night, sipping hot chocolate, totally unwilling to go outside again. One of the girls hung out with me on her break, and we got chummy, both being the same age and both sort of depressed about fucking up our lives and feeling apathetic about our futures. And in the morning she and her mom drove me all the way back to my town. Motherfucking hockey brothers. Well, I have 2 horror stories and 1 happy ending. The first horror story was a guy I went out with about 3 times, and casually mentioned that I had a blog and played an MMO. He signed up for the MMO, and we started playing together, but didn't hang out again face to face because I had to go out of town for work. A few weeks into it, I noticed that he was online in the game, power leveling and stuff without me. I didn't think anything of it, but I said, "Hey, I saw you online last night. What did you wind up doing? Any new content?" And he denied it. This happened a few times, and he would always deny it, even though his level was getting higher and higher, and I could see him online, plain as day. I thought it was a dumb thing to lie about, and an even dumber thing to fight about, so I stopped messaging him. About that same time, I started getting really vindictive, nasty comments on my blog. They said things that didn't really make sense, like they were coming from someone who knew a little about me, but not enough to really zing it, so they filled in the cracks with made-up guesswork. It didn't take long for me to fill in the blanks and realize it was this guy. I turned off the comments feature on my blog, and he started texting me and calling me. Non-stop. Finally, I changed my number, my blog address, and any other digital information I could. I'm really glad that fucker never knew where I lived. The other, I've written about a couple times on various other Ask Reddit threads. I met a guy on a dating site. We usually hung out one-on-one, but he met my friends occasionally. He was always really sweet to me in private and pretty cool around my friends. It got to the point where I wanted more, so I said as much, and he went off on me, saying my weight was disgusting. I weighed about 60 pounds less than he did, and was only a few inches shorter than he, so he wasn't exactly thin himself, and I was gross and stupid. He would text, call, email, and Facebook me periodically to remind me that he felt that way. I just forwarded all of his bile to his new girlfriend, including the parts where he mentions being interested in cheating on her. But my happy ending came about a year ago, when I went on a date with my current boyfriend. We met on OkCupid, and after 2 weeks of texting decided to meet for pizza. I took a cab because after those 2 negative experiences, I didn't want my car to be seen, even though I knew several of his coworkers personally. It was raining, and he accidentally left the headlights on in his car. We talked for hours, so when we came out, he had a dead battery. He called his sister, who came with jumper cables, and said here, and went inside to play pool, so I stood in the rain with him and helped him jump his car. Then he said, "Would you like to hang out for a while longer? I live right around the corner. Least I could do is offer you a towel." So I decided to go back with him. I wound up going back to his house and watching Aladdin with him, of all things, and doing some pretty heavy making out. He drove me back to my neighborhood and said, "Not that horrible kiss of death, I'll call you. But so, how long do I have to wait to see you again?" Then he kissed the fuck out of me. A week later, we were Facebook official, and almost a year later, we're still together. Seeing a running pattern with the heterosexual male posts on here of met her, and she turned out to be a fatty, so I ran. So I thought I'd share some of my psycho-host beast dates with girls/women, which had nothing to do with their weight. Date from hell: one hipster vegan chick. I told her up front I don't like a lot of indie alternative music and that I eat meat. She said she didn't care, everyone can do what they want. I still didn't feel right about it, but went along on the date anyway. We meet at Casino El Camino, which if you live in Austin, you know the place. I ordered one of their amazing cheeseburgers. She started going on a tirade about how meat is processed and how the cows are treated, and basically trying to gross me out using crap borrowed from Fast Food Nation. I know exactly where meat comes from, and so it doesn't faze me a bit. I start telling her a few things she's missing in how livestock is treated, what free range actually means, for example. I'm trying to show her that I understand her point of view, but that I still eat meat, even saying something to that effect. But she will not shut up. Finally, my burger comes. I realize this date is pretty much done, so I decide to send it off with a bang. I bite into my casino burger. It's so juicy and bloody. Oh, I love ground up animal flesh. The torture makes it taste so much better. She kept trying to gross me out, and when she realized it wasn't working, and I kept egging her on the whole time talking about how the pain and suffering made the meat sweeter and stuff like that, she threw her drink on me and left. Had a blast, but that jacket still smells faintly of PBR 3 years later. Date from hell 2. Meet a girl online. She's one of those fake goth girls. Basically, when Marilyn Manson was popular, they bought their entire wardrobe from Hot Topic, but mention Skinny Puppy or Bauhaus to them, and you get blank stares. Anyway, we meet at Waffle House, her choice, not mine, and she's wearing a very low-cut shirt that shows off her vast tracts of land, and she has an almost foot-long ink tattooed on her cleavage. Thinking I have a topic of conversation finally, I say, they did nice work on that ink tattoo. When did? It's not an ankh, it's a vampire cross. That's an ankh. The Egyptian hieroglyph for life. It's associated with vampires because it's not an ankh, it's a vampire cross. I left quickly. Date from hell 3. Valentine's Day is the single SAP stream day. Almost every single girl in the country feels horrible if they don't have a date, so they'll say yes to anyone who asks them out. So I met a girl online, and she came over to my place and talked for several hours, watched Princess Bride, talked about books, had some non-intercourse sexy times. I loaned her a book she seemed interested in because I thought we were hitting it off, and she left. Next day, I'm headed to work when I see my book laying on my doorstep with a paper crammed in it. It's a 3-page long letter in which she goes on and on about how big of a loser I am, how she only went out with me because she didn't want to be alone on Valentine's Day, how pathetic I am, how childish because I like movies like Princess Bride, how I need to come out of the closet, how stupid I am since I never finished college, and I'm obviously a complete idiot, etc. Note that not once in the entire evening did she give any indication she wasn't interested. I even went over a play-by-play with a female friend to make sure I didn't miss anything, and she's always good about pointing them out to me. So I wrote her back even though she told me never to contact her again, explaining in thorough detail exactly how she was being a bitch. I also included a copy of her letter, which I proofread for grammar, spelling, and punctuation errors. Date from hell 4. Talked about this one in another post recently, but I was talking to a girl online. She asked what plans I had that night. I said I was going to see my friend's punk band. She said she'd love to go. I warned her it was punk music and she may not like it. She said she wanted to go anyway. So we meet and we're talking and I reiterate it's a punk band as in 70s style punk, not Green Day or some 41. She says, I love punk music, it's all I listened to in high school. Everyone else listed to that stupid rap nigger music. At this time, my friend who was the drummer for the band that had 3 songs about racial unity in the punk scene and their fondness for beating the shit out of racist/Nazi skinheads and punks shows up. He's also over 6 tall and black with a huge afro. So this is my friend I was talking about. Date from hell. Like many atheists, I'm fascinated by theology. I have a shelf of various religious books in my library. Girl comes over, have drinks, she smokes 2 bowls but I decline because it's not my thing. Blah blah sexy times. Afterward, she starts looking over my bookshelf, talking about how much she loves Harry Potter after seeing I have them, and asking about some of the other series like Dresden Files I have. Then she notices I have the Satanic Bible, and starts screaming that I'm evil. I point out that I have 2 books on Satanism, 5 on Wicca, 10 on Christianity, including for different translations of the Bible, 2 on Buddhism, etc. Doesn't matter, I'm an evil Satanist and I'm going to hell. Please note the following, she knew I was an atheist. We'd talked about it several times. She was intoxicated, doing drugs, engaged in premarital sex with me, had bragged earlier about her lesbian encounters. But owning a book is what's evil. Date from Hell 6. She comes over to my place. I cook us dinner. She calls her dealer, who comes over with 3 guys who look like leg breakers, so she can buy an 8-ball of Coke, then argues with the guy aggressively over the price. WTF? Date from Hell 7. I have 3 go-to-movies for dates who come over to my place to watch a movie. I of course let them look over my DVD collection and choose whatever they want, but if they ask me to pick, I pick one of these 3 movies: Stardust, Princess Bride, and Casablanca. They're all romantic movies, but also very good movies. So we're watching Casablanca. She's quiet through the entire film. Movie ends, she's still quiet. I ask her what she thought of it. It was good, but why did they have to make the Germans so mean? I've gotten into 2 serious, long-term relationships with guys I've met on online dating sites. 2.5 years with the current one, and going strong. I did go on a 24-hour-long date with one guy, which should have been about 6 different dates. Actually, it never would have gone one date if I'd gotten out of the car when I should have. That was about the point. He said he hated gay people, and surely you don't believe in that monkey shit. Atheist in the house. Anyway, on this one date we went mini-golfing, played pool/arcade games, went for lunch, I met his mom. He took me to the top of one hill in the city I'd never been to before, then to his high school to teach me how to play his professional sport, frisbee golf. Then to the top of the other big hill in town, then back to meet his mom a second time and show me his room, dinner, movies. At least I made him sit through New Moon. Supermarket for wine, my place for strip poker. One thing led to the other, and he stayed the night. During the frisky times, he asked me 3 questions a man should never ask a girl, especially when it's the worst sex she's ever had. Will you be my girlfriend? Is it big enough for you? Have you come yet? The answer to all 3 should have been a resounding no. Anyway, then breakfast the next morning, and then he wanted to take me to an engagement party as his girlfriend, but I made my excuses and said I had a friend in dire need of my help. Ended it all the next day, citing irreconcilable differences. He was gutted. The whole time we were out together he kept saying, "Where did you come from?" All this because my now boyfriend of 2.5 years disappeared, standing me up. All before we were officially a thing, of course. Don't go out on really long dates with people you actually have nothing in common with, and are a seriously shitty lay just because you're mad at the guy you really liked, and had a few dates with for standing you up and disappearing for a couple of weeks. A friend of mine's story to add. Went on a date with a girl I met through OkCupid. We met at a local bar for a couple drinks. This sounds really pompous, but I could tell just by speaking with her that I was out of her league. Way above her, in fact. She was working at a bookstore, didn't seem well educated, and was just generally devoid of long-term goals and motivation. However, I definitely would have slept with her if given the opportunity. I decided that I would entertain her for an evening, buy her some drinks, and see where it went. She was very pleasant and cheery, and the conversation was fluid. As the night wound to a close, she said she had to get up for work in the morning. We walked outside the bar, and I received a nice kiss, tongue and all. She declined me to walk her home because she didn't want to be tempted to invite me in. Okay. We texted sporadically through the week about our work days and other trivial things. She mentioned one evening after work that she was feeling exhausted and could really go for a massage. I, being the gentleman I am, offered my amateur services. She said I should meet her at her place at 9 p.m. Done deal. Walked to her house, and she invited me in. I asked what she wanted to do, suggesting TV or a movie. She replied that she didn't have a TV. Okay. I wasn't sure what else you'd do at a stranger's house that doesn't have a TV other than give them a massage. She gives me a tour of her home, which ends at her bedroom. This is basically a script from the movies at this point. Knowing my role, I sit on her bed. She comes into the bedroom and locks the door behind her. I thought to myself that this was suddenly a different kind of movie, and I definitely wasn't sure what kind. She kneels on her bed and faces away from me, pulling her shirt off. I couldn't see anything, but I liked my odds at this point. She lays down on the bed and hands me a body butter bar. I rub up my hands and go to work on her shoulders. Great skin. Nice body. I'm working on this girl's back until my hands are sore. She senses this and kills the light on the nightstand. All right. She invites me to climb under the covers with her. I quickly pull off my jeans and slip under with her. We make out for a minute or two before I go in for second base. She is, after all, in bed with me and her shirt is off. She senses what is happening and slaps my hand away. What? I try again, and she forcibly puts my hands back on my side of the bed. I'm dumbfounded. You didn't think I was going to have sex with you, did you? This is a joke, I think to myself. The look on her face did not indicate as such. I look at her and very matter-of-factly state, yes, I was very much of the opinion that we would be having sex this evening. She arches her eyebrows and recoils. I barely know you. I can't believe that you would think that. How dare you? After all that rubbing, the kissing, the shirt coming off, the invitation to come over for a massage. She doesn't even have a TV. She put her shirt on under the covers and turned over, the cold shoulder. I got up and left without so much as a word. Never heard from her again. Met a cute girl named Dana on OkCupid in 2009 around northern Indiana. We hit it off online, we were both into similar things, and she seemed fun. Not exactly the brightest, but fun. We shot messages back and forth for about a week. We were both in college at the time, and she lived pretty far away, but I decided to meet her for a first date and see how things go. I drive the 50 minutes to her house to pick her up. As I walk to the front door, I notice a pink Power Wheels and trampoline on the front lawn. Looking back on this from a distance of many years, I should have stopped right there, turned around, gotten in my car, and driven back home. But I hadn't gotten laid in a long time, so my brain was tuning out any and all such red flags. Undaunted by the obvious warning signs, I ring the doorbell. A 12-year-old boy answers. Who are you? He asks me in a thick-hick drawl. Before I can answer, his younger sister of about 7 runs up behind him yelling, "It's Dana's internet boyfriend." From the couch in front of the living room TV, displaying a riveting NASCAR race, comes the voice of what I can only assume was a large, middle-aged man who had to be her dad. "Danner, your date's here." No hello. No handshake. He didn't even get off the couch. And just for clarification's sake, the whole family had such a thick drawl that Dana became Dana, sort of like idea becomes idea. Around the corner comes running a rotund woman in a baggy WVU sweatshirt and baggy jeans. She shoos her siblings away and runs out the door, closing it behind her. As I get a good close look at her there on the doorstep, my mind is desperately trying to match her face and figure to the pictures online. Like I said, my long-time lack of sex had been affecting my judgment, and it showed nowhere worse than in my appraisal of what she would look like in person. In those first few seconds of conversation, I was on autopilot, blurting out perfunctory haze and how's it goings, while a broiling fury of self-condemnation raged in my head. Damn you, penis, for making me ignore the obvious high-angled self-shots and pictures from the titties up. You intentionally disregarded all the classic warning signs of a fat chick trying to hide her fatness. God damn it. But her rack is pretty huge if you can see its contours even underneath that big hoodie. No. Shut up, penis. Not being a total asshole, I kept my cool and decided to at least show her a good time. We went off to some random local Mexican place. Her choice. I had no idea where anything was in this town. The rest of the date was pretty standard. Food, conversation, laughs. A visit to the park playground cause there wasn't shit else to do in this podunk place besides go bowling, and fuck that unless I'm completely wasted. Finally I drop her back off at her house. Say I had a great time, but don't know how things will pan out cause we live so far away. Give her a good night kiss and drive home. Here's where shit gets hilarious. 20 minutes into my journey back, I get a text from her that reads, "Hey, I just want to know, are you a player? Do you use girls for your own pleasure?" I text back, what? Reply, well, I am just trying to find out if you will take this serious. I don't want to scare you off, but I want to make sure we are on the same page. I say, look, we've been talking for a week and have only known each other in person for all of 3 hours. There's nothing to take serious. Let's just have fun and see where it goes. I have absolutely no intention of seeing where anything goes, but I want to let her down easy. Nonetheless, the crazy is unleashed without me even having to let her down. She doesn't text me back after that, so I think, hey, she got the message and calmed down. I get home around 10:30 p.m. It's Friday. It's college. My roommates and I end up going out and getting shit-faced. I pass out at our friend's house, but had left my phone in my room. When I get home the next afternoon, I grab my phone and see that I have 18 missed calls, 42 text messages, and 7 picture messages. All from the same girl. What the flying fuck? I won't list the entire smorgasbord of desperation, but it went something like this. 11:12, hey, 11:34, hey, what are you doing? 11:50, I miss you. 12:01, are you mad at me? 12:10, why aren't you answering? 1 o'clock, I knew you were a player. 1:21, damn it, please talk to me. 2:19, I'm sorry I called you a player. 2:33, picture MSG of her laying on her bed in bra and panties. 2:34, what you are missing right now. 3 o'clock, pic MSG of her lifting her breast to her mouth and licking it. 3:01, I want you so bad right now. 3:45, come over. 3:57, my parents are gone, I'll be just us. 10:49, hey. 11:15, pic MSG, one arm cradling her boobs over the nipples. 11:16, let's hang out tonight, winking and laughing, etc., etc., and on and on and on. Needless to say, I never texted her back. My friends and I had a good laugh about the whole situation, the ridiculous text messages, how I dodged a crazy bullet. But the damnedest thing is, over the course of the next few years, I would still randomly get a "Habe" from her every couple months. Like she thought that I would forget how bats hit insane she is if she just gave it a few months to simmer down. Okay, Cupid, never again. She did have some great tits, though. So after a year of being single, I let my best friend, Amanda, convince me to give the apps one more chance. Oh, come on, she said. You're just being dramatic. Not everyone on there is a sociopath. Amanda was wrong. Rock Bottom, Part 1, The Businessman. Let me rewind for a second. Last year, I matched with this guy on Bumble. Let's call him Ethan. Ethan's profile was everything a woman in her late 20s/early 30s wants to see. He described himself as a successful business owner, college-educated, and ready to settle down. His pictures were normal, no shirtless selfies, no group shots where I had to figure out which one he was, no weird bathroom mirror pics. He looked normal. We started chatting, and Ethan was good. Like really good. He asked thoughtful questions, he didn't bombard me with cheesy pickup lines, and he made me laugh. He told me he owned a small marketing agency, which I thought was impressive. He even mentioned how he'd spent the past year reflecting on his life, and how he was ready to find someone to settle down with. I thought, wow, maybe this is what all the therapy and bad dates were leading up to. We agreed to meet for coffee. And let me tell you, Ethan was charming. He showed up on time, he complimented me, but not in a creepy or over-the-top way, and he actually seemed interested in what I had to say. I left that date thinking, maybe this is it. Maybe I've finally found a decent guy. Fast forward to 2 days later. I was sitting at my desk at work, scrolling through Facebook, as one does when they're procrastinating, and I got a notification, someone you may know. I clicked on his profile out of curiosity, and that's when I saw it. Someone had commented on one of his recent photos, "Glad you're out, bro, hope you're staying out of trouble this time." Excuse me? Being the curious, nosy person I am, I started digging. And that's when I found out that Ethan had been released from prison 2 weeks before our date. He'd spent the past 14 years in lockup for armed robbery, social security fraud, and child endangerment. 14 years. He was 36, which means he went to prison at 22. His successful marketing agency? Yeah, that was a side hustle he'd started in prison. His year of reflection? That was literal prison time. Needless to say, I blocked him immediately and spent the rest of the evening reevaluating my life choices. Rock Bottom, Part 2, The Cop. Before Ethan, there was Mike. Mike was one of those guys who looked like he'd walked straight out of a Hallmark movie. Clean cut, broad shoulders, big smile, golden retriever energy. He messaged me first with something witty about my bio, and I thought, finally, a guy with a personality. Mike was a cop, or at least that's what he said. He told me he'd been in law enforcement for 10 years and was up for a promotion to chief. I wasn't sure if I was ready to date a cop, but he was so charming and polite that I thought, why not? We went out for drinks, and honestly the date was fine. Not amazing, not terrible. He seemed like a nice enough guy, but there were a few things that felt a little off. For one, he talked about himself a lot. Like, I could barely get a word in before he'd interrupt me to tell me another story about how he'd saved the day at work. The other thing that bugged me was how vague he was when I asked him about his job. I'd ask something like, "What's your day-to-day like?" And he'd just say, "Oh, it's always different." Keeps me on my toes. Still, I figured maybe he was just being cautious about sharing too much since, he was a cop. Fast forward a week, and Amanda sends me a link to a news article with a text that just says, "Isn't this the guy you went out with?" I clicked the link, and there he was, Mike, staring back at me in a mugshot. Turns out, Mike had been fired from the police force a month before our date. Not only that, but he was under state and federal investigation for stalking, domestic violence, and illegally wiretapping his ex-girlfriend. I spent the next 24 hours convincing myself that I was not, in fact, cursed, but just very, very unlucky. The return to the hellscape. Which brings us to now. Against my better judgment, I let Amanda convince me to re-download Bumble. She said, "You've just had bad luck. Lightning doesn't strike 3 times. Amanda was wrong again. I matched with this guy named Chris last week. His profile seemed normal. He worked in tech, he liked hiking, he had a golden retriever, red flag. Maybe? I thought, okay, let's give this one more shot. Chris and I started messaging, and everything seemed fine at first. He was funny, polite, and didn't send me any unsolicited shirtless pics, which, at this point, felt like a win. But then about 5 messages in, he hit me with, "So, how do you feel about polyamory?" Now, I'm not knocking polyamory, it's just not for me. So I told him as much, thinking that would be the end of the conversation. But Chris was not ready to let it go. He spent the next 20 minutes trying to convince me that monogamy was a social construct, and that I'd be happier and more fulfilled if I just gave polyamory a shot. When I politely declined, he said, "Well, it's your loss. Most women would kill to have a guy as emotionally evolved as me." I unmatched him immediately. Bear with me. It gets good towards the end. This happened a couple years ago. The receptionist at one of my clients talked/begged me into meeting her best friend, who just moved to LA from Phoenix. She swore up and down we were perfect for each other. I checked out her OKC profile, chatted back and forth for a few days, then talked to the mystery girl once on the phone, and we decided to meet for dinner and drinks at a local bar and grill after her shift. She's a nurse, was over on a Tuesday night. We meet. She's an adorable, petite, dirty blonde with glasses and freckles. Totally my type. I could tell she was a bit nervous. We sit down and order drinks. She downs her apple martini in less than 5 minutes, orders another and apologizes, stating she wants to loosen up a bit because she's nervous since her friend talked me up so much. Which is odd since I don't even know her friend that well at all. Fast forward a bit. She ended up having 2 martinis before the appetizers came, 2 more in between appetizers and 3 more during dinner, and 1 more right before the check came. Total martinis had by a 5'3" girl in a 3-hour period. 7 surprisingly, the conversation during this period did quite well. The trouble came as we were about to leave, and she decided to use the restroom before we hit the road. She fell twice on the way, and once on the way back. Since she was clearly hammered, I offered to drive her home and give her some cash for a cab in the morning to pick her car up. She agreed but declined the cash. Mind you, it's nearing midnight, and I have to get up at 5:30 for work. As we are driving toward her apartment, it becomes apparent that, combined with her drunken state and the fact she's lived in the valley for less than 2 weeks, she forgot her address and how to get herself home. We drive around North Hollywood in Studio City for an hour trying to remember her street or any local landmarks. This fails and I'm getting tired/frustrated. I offer to let her stay at my place. Nothing weird. She can crash on my bed and I'll take the couch. She's okay with this. On my way back to my place, she attempts to throw up out the car window, but doesn't realize the window was never open in the first place. Vomit everywhere. Now she's crying and apologizing like crazy. I get her to my apartment, carry her up the 3 flights of stairs, and toss her on my bed. She's out cold. I go downstairs and spend another 40 minutes cleaning out my car, and finally get to sleep on my couch around 2 a.m. Around 4:30 a.m. I'm awoken by a shrill scream coming from my bedroom. I run in wearing just my boxers, flip the light on. The girl pauses for a second, looks at me and screams more, backs into a corner, and throws my nightstand lamp at me while yelling, "Who the fuck are you?" It takes a minute for me to calm her down and explain the situation and remind her of our night. It eventually all comes back to her. She starts crying and apologizing. After I calm her down some more, I give her a ride home. During our ride home, the awkward silence is only broken by her apologizing while sobbing, telling me how to get to her place, and then asking if we hooked up. I told her we didn't, and that I'm not the creepy type to take advantage of girls in her condition. She replied with something along the lines of, "Oh, okay. I'm not typically a lush, and I'm definitely not a slut. I was just super nervous and didn't know my limit last night. You seem great, and I hope we can see each other again." I ended up saying, sure, just to avoid any more awkwardness, gave her an in-car hug, and said goodnight. The next day, while slothing around work in a meeting, she called. It went to voicemail. Immediately she called again. Twice. Finally she left a voicemail. Said voicemail went something like this: "So I was thinking about what I asked you on our way home last night in regards to us hooking up. And I'm kind of curious as to why you didn't try anything with me. Is it because you think you're too good for me, huh? Mr. Big Shot LA guy? Well, whatever. I'm not a slut and don't sleep around, but you missed a shot at some awesome sex last night. So whatever." Click about half an hour later, while I'm still in the meeting, she calls and leaves another voicemail. This time crying. "I'm sorry about what I said earlier. I'm just having trouble adjusting to a new place. I'm homesick. You seem real great. Please call me back and please don't ignore me. Please. I'm sorry." Needless to say, I didn't call her back. Her friend, the receptionist, apologized profusely the next time I saw her. We didn't talk much about it after that. TLDR, blind date and new girl in town gets blackout drunk on first date. Pukes all over my car. Can't drive or remember way to her apartment. Stays at my place in my bed while I sleep on my couch. Wakes up at 4 a.m., doesn't know where she is, freaks out, screams, throws lamp at me. I calm her down, take her home. She calls me 4 times the next day, leaves voicemail scathing me for not taking advantage of her. Calls back shortly after and apologizes, asks to hang out again. I never speak to her again. I met Brian during one of those weird in-between seasons of life, the kind where you're not exactly happy, but you're not quite miserable either. It was early spring in Willow Creek, Oregon, and the rain hadn't stopped for days. I'm Abby. At the time, I was 28, working as a veterinary assistant, renting a tiny apartment above a hardware store, and trying to convince myself that loneliness was just a phase. Brian seemed like a gift from the universe. We met on this dating app called Hearth. His profile was understated. A couple of photos of him hiking the painted hills, one of him playing guitar at a backyard bonfire. We matched, and within several hours, we were exchanging long, thoughtful messages about everything from our favorite childhood books to our worst first dates. Brian had an easy charm that made you want to lean in closer. He wasn't flashy or overconfident, just steady, soft-spoken, and endlessly patient. After 2 weeks of messaging, we met in person at a little diner called Elsie's on Main Street. Brian was exactly how he described himself: jeans and boots, scruffy beard, quiet smile. He opened doors, remembered my favorite coffee order, and listened like every word I said mattered. It was easy to fall into something with him. Almost too easy. Over the next few months, Brian and I became inseparable. He was the kind of boyfriend who left notes tucked into my jacket pockets, who remembered when I had a bad day and showed up with takeout and a cheesy movie. My friends adored him. My parents, when they visited, said he seemed like good people. The only odd thing was how little Brian talked about his past. He said he grew up in a small town in Northern California, but didn't like to revisit it. Bad memories, he claimed. I didn't push. Everyone had things they wanted to leave behind. Besides, he made me feel safe, safer than I had in years. Until the cracks started to show. It began with little things. Once, when we were hiking near the Columbia River Gorge, I teased him about getting lost. His face darkened in an instant. He grabbed my arm, not hard enough to hurt, but hard enough to make me stumble, and hissed, "You think you're smarter than me?" I laughed it off, blaming it on stress or embarrassment. But it happened again a few weeks later. We were at a local farmer's market, and I bumped into an old college friend. We chatted for maybe 5 minutes before Brian appeared at my side, hand firm on my lower back, steering me away. The second we were alone, his smile slipped. "I don't like you talking to other guys like that," he muttered. I apologized, even though I hadn't done anything wrong. It was easier than arguing. That became a pattern. Brian's temper was like a live wire, unpredictable and dangerous when touched the wrong way. But there were good days too, days when he was the man I first met, laughing and cooking breakfast and singing off-key to old rock songs. I told myself no relationship was perfect. I told myself he loved me. I told myself it was enough. The real unraveling started one night when Brian fell asleep on my couch. His phone buzzed on the coffee table, screen lighting up with a notification. Normally, I wouldn't have looked. I hated snooping. But the name caught my eye. Monica, do not answer, flashing across the screen. Curiosity gnawed at me until I picked up the phone. I didn't open anything, just glimpsed the string of messages popping up. Things like, "You're not done with me. She doesn't know who you really are. You can't erase what you did." My stomach turned. I set the phone down carefully, heart thudding. When Brian woke up a few minutes later, I pretended everything was fine. But I couldn't unsee it. That night, I started digging. It wasn't hard. Brian had made an effort to scrub his online presence, but the internet never forgets completely. Old news articles surfaced. Court records. Police reports. A decade ago, in a town called Red Bluff, California, Brian had been accused of stalking an ex-girlfriend, threatening her, breaking into her home. Charges were dropped due to insufficient evidence, but the pattern was clear. There were whispers about another woman too, one who had gone missing shortly after breaking things off with him. Nothing proven, nothing official, but enough to make my blood run cold. I sat there in the dim light of my apartment, reading and rereading the articles, feeling the walls close in. The man sleeping beside me wasn't who he claimed to be. He wasn't safe. I wasn't safe. I didn't confront him. I didn't pack a bag. I didn't slam the door. I knew better. Instead, I played along. I smiled. I kissed him goodnight. I told him I loved him. And the next morning, while he was at work, I disappeared. I took only what I could fit in 2 duffel bags. Left my lease early, moved 2 towns over, closer to my sister, and changed my phone number. I blocked him on everything. Deleted every trace of our relationship from my accounts. It wasn't easy. For weeks, I woke up in cold sweats, half dreaming that he had found me, that he was standing over my bed. But he never showed up. Not directly. Still, strange things happened. My sister's car tires were slashed one night. A man who looked a lot like Brian was spotted lurking near my new apartment. Police reports were filed, but nothing stuck. Eventually it stopped. Or maybe he just moved on to someone new. It's been almost 2 years now. I still have dreams about him sometimes. About the way he smiled. About the way that smile could turn into something cold, something monstrous, in an instant. I learned the hard way that monsters don't always hide in the shadows. Sometimes they sit across from you at dinner. Sometimes they kiss your forehead and tell you they'll never let you go. I survived Brian. But I don't trust easy smiles anymore. And I never ignore my instincts. Not ever again. When I first met Logan, he seemed like the kind of guy you'd want to introduce to your family. Charming, funny in a quiet way, and just rough around the edges enough to seem genuine. I'm Ellie, by the way. At the time, I was 26, living in Cold Spring, New York, a picturesque little village on the Hudson River, about an hour north of the city. It's the kind of place where antique shops outnumber grocery stores, where tourists flood the streets on fall weekends but locals all know each other's business. After a messy breakup the winter before, I had sworn off dating for a while. But loneliness has a sneaky way of eroding promises. I downloaded a dating app, Marigold, telling myself it was just for fun. No expectations. Logan's profile popped up one rainy Thursday afternoon. His pictures were casual, hiking up Breakneck Ridge, laughing at a backyard barbecue, posing beside a rusted-out pickup truck. His bio was short, small-town guy. Dog dad. Coffee addict. We started chatting almost immediately. He was easy to talk to, funny without trying too hard, asking questions that made me feel seen instead of interrogated. After a week of messaging, we decided to meet for coffee at the Foundry Cafe, nestled on Main Street between a bookstore and a shop that sold handmade soaps. Our first date was warm, low-key, and surprisingly natural. Logan was attentive, easy with a smile, and seemed genuinely interested in everything I had to say. When he walked me to my car afterward and simply said, "I'd like to see you again if you're up for it," I felt a flicker of something I hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. The first warning came 3 days later. I was curled up on my couch, watching the rain blur the view of the Hudson outside my window, when I got a message on Instagram. It was from an account with no profile picture, no posts, no followers. The message was simple. "Be careful with Logan." I stared at it, heart thudding against my ribs. At first, I thought it was a prank. Maybe one of my friends teasing me for finally dating again. But none of them even knew about Logan yet. I blocked the account without replying, chalking it up to a fluke. Then, 2 days later, another message came. Different account. Same warning. "He's not who you think he is." This time, the message included a photo, a grainy image of Logan standing outside a bar I didn't recognize, his arm draped casually around a woman I'd never seen before. They looked close, intimate. My stomach twisted. I tried to reason with myself. Maybe it was an old photo. Maybe it was nothing. But the seed of doubt had been planted, and it was growing roots fast. The next time Logan and I met up, I couldn't shake the unease. We grabbed dinner at a small Italian place tucked behind the Cold Spring Depot. Logan was his usual self, joking about how he always ordered the same thing, teasing me for my pineapple on pizza preferences. But I noticed little things. How he flinched when his phone buzzed. How he kept glancing toward the windows. When he got a call midway through dinner, he silenced it without even looking at the screen. "Work stuff," he said with a shrug. That night, back in my apartment, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying the details, the warnings, the photo. Finally, around 2 a.m., I gave in and started digging. I Googled his name along with Cold Spring and Hudson Valley. Nothing. Then, feeling foolish, I added Poughkeepsie, a bigger city about 30 minutes north. And there it was. A news article from 2 years ago. A missing persons report. The woman's name was Hannah Lee, 23 years old, last seen leaving a bar near Vassar College with a man matching Logan's description. There was no arrest. No concrete evidence. But Logan had reportedly moved away from Poughkeepsie less than a month later. My hands trembled as I clicked through the sparse details. Could it be a coincidence? Maybe. Maybe not. I decided I couldn't afford to be wrong. The next time Logan invited me over, I said yes. His place was a small rental on the outskirts of town, near an old train depot, far enough from Main Street to feel isolated, but close enough that the sound of trains occasionally rattled the windows. When he opened the door, he looked genuinely happy to see me. He handed me a beer, which I accepted but didn't drink much of, and we settled on the threadbare couch to watch a movie. Halfway through, I excused myself to the bathroom, and instead ducked into the hallway. I know it was wrong. I know I should have just asked him directly. But some part of me, the part that had survived bad dates and worse relationships, whispered that if I didn't find proof now, I might not get another chance. In his bedroom, tucked under a pile of old flannel shirts, I found a keychain. It was plastic, cheap, and emblazoned with the logo of a dive bar in Poughkeepsie, the same bar Hannah Lee had vanished from. My throat tightened. I tucked the keychain back exactly where I found it, and forced myself to walk calmly back to the living room. Logan looked up at me, his face unreadable. "Everything okay?" he asked. "Yeah," I lied, sinking back onto the couch. I stayed for another 20 agonizing minutes before making an excuse and leaving. He didn't try to stop me, but when I glanced back as I pulled out of his driveway, he was standing in the doorway, watching my taillights disappear into the night. I blocked Logan on everything the next morning, changed my number, deleted my dating apps. For weeks, I lived on edge, jumping at every knock, watching every strange car that passed my street. But Logan never showed up again. Neither did the anonymous messages. Sometimes, when I'm walking along the river or browsing the shops on Main Street, I wonder if he's still nearby. If he's moved on to someone else. If another girl is ignoring the little voice in her head, telling her something's wrong. I hope she listens. Because I almost didn't. And it nearly cost me everything. I was lounging on my beat-up couch, half watching a baseball game and half swiping through profiles when I matched with Jenna. Her pictures were casual but stunning. Messy bun, oversized hoodie, eyes that looked like they could see right through you. Her bio was short. Just a girl who loves horror movies, late-night drives, and strong coffee. We started chatting almost immediately. She was funny and sharp, throwing back sarcastic one-liners faster than I could keep up. Within an hour, she suggested we meet up. Normally, I wasn't the type to jump straight into meeting a stranger, especially not late at night. But there was something about Jenna that made me throw caution out the window. Besides, what could go wrong in a town where everybody knew everybody? She suggested Miller's Creek Park. It was about 5 minutes outside of town, tucked behind a dried-up fishing pond and a half-collapsed picnic shelter. Locals mostly used it for 4th of July fireworks and high school keggers. Not exactly romantic, but Jenna said she liked the quiet. Less judgmental than a crowded diner or a nosy coffee shop. I hesitated for a second, but she sent a laughing emoji and added, "I promise I'm not an axe murderer." Famous last words. At 10:45 p.m., I pulled into the gravel lot at Miller's Creek. The place was dead quiet, lit only by a single flickering street lamp and the pale glow of the moon. I shot Jenna a quick text. "Me here. Where are you?" Seconds later, my phone buzzed. "Jenna, just parked. Meet me down by the pond." Smiley face. I squinted through the windshield. No other cars around. No headlights cutting through the darkness. Weird. But maybe she parked on the far side. Some people hated parking right next to others, a small-town paranoia left over from high school, I guess. I climbed out of my car, the gravel crunching under my boots. The air smelled like damp earth and something faintly metallic. The walk to the pond wasn't far, maybe 200 yards past the broken swing set and the abandoned volleyball court. As I made my way toward the water, I kept glancing over my shoulder. The park was too quiet. No crickets. No frogs. Just a heavy, pressing silence that made the hairs on the back of my neck stand up. I told myself I was being dramatic. Too many horror movies growing up. When I reached the edge of the pond, I stopped. Looked around. No Jenna. I pulled my phone out again, thumb hovering over the screen. Before I could text, another message popped up. Jenna, I see you. Smiley face. My stomach twisted. I spun around, scanning the tree line. Nothing but shadows. Jenna. I called out, hating how shaky my voice sounded. No answer. Just the soft whisper of wind through the cattails. I took a step back, then another. That's when I heard it, the unmistakable sound of footsteps crunching through the brush behind me. I barely had time to turn before someone lunged. A heavy body slammed into me, knocking the phone out of my hand. It skittered across the dirt, landing with the screen facing up, still glowing with Jenna's last creepy text. The guy, because it was definitely a guy, was wearing a black hoodie pulled low over his face. He grabbed at my arm, trying to drag me toward the trees. I twisted, adrenaline flooding my veins, and managed to elbow him hard in the gut. He grunted but didn't let go. I stomped down on his foot, aiming for where his toes would be, and yanked my arm free. For a split second, we just stared at each other. His face was hidden, but I could see his hands, rough, calloused, and clutching a small, gleaming object. A knife. That was all I needed to see. I bolted. I didn't look back. Didn't think. Just ran like hell toward my car. I heard him shouting behind me, heard the pounding of footsteps gaining ground. My lungs burned. My legs screamed. But I didn't stop. I fumbled with my keys, managed to unlock the door on the second try, and threw myself inside. I slammed the door, jammed the key into the ignition, and peeled out of the lot so fast I kicked up a cloud of dust behind me. In the rearview mirror, I caught a glimpse of the guy standing at the edge of the lot, breathing hard, the knife still dangling from his hand, watching me go. I didn't go home right away. Instead, I drove straight to the Marlow Bend police station. It was a squat, brick building that usually dealt with noise complaints and the occasional stolen lawnmower. When I stumbled into the lobby, wild-eyed and shaking, Deputy Harris took one look at me and ushered me into a back room. I told him everything, the Tinder match, the texts, the attack. He listened carefully, scribbling notes on a yellow legal pad. When I finished, he leaned back in his chair and sighed. "Son," he said, "you're lucky you got out of there." Apparently, Miller's Creek had been the site of 2 other similar incidents in the past few months. Young men lured out late at night by fake profiles and ambushed. Only one of them had reported it. The others had been too embarrassed. I wasn't embarrassed anymore. I was furious. Deputy Harris promised to investigate, but with no clear description and a burner number that went dead right after the attack, there wasn't much to go on. Still, they put extra patrols by the park. Just in case. The next few days were a blur. I deleted Tinder, scrubbed my social media, changed all my passwords. Every time I heard a car slow down near my house, my heart jumped into my throat. I kept thinking about that last look, the man standing there, watching me flee. And I kept thinking about Jenna, or whoever had been behind those messages. Was it the guy himself? A partner? A whole group? I never found out. Marlow Bend moved on, as small towns do. The park stayed empty that summer, the swings rusting a little more each day. And I learned a hard, ugly lesson. After a string of lonely weekends and too many nights rewatching the same tired sitcoms, I caved and downloaded a dating app. Everyone in Waverly Bluff said it was the way to meet people now, even in a town so small you could drive through it in under 10 minutes. Tristan's profile popped up after a few days of swiping. He looked normal enough, sandy brown hair, easy smile, a couple of pictures hiking through what looked like the Cloud Peak wilderness. His bio was short and sweet. Engineer. Dog lover. Looking for something real. I'm Kirsty, by the way. I'm 27, work at the only bookstore in Waverly Bluff, and have a bad habit of trusting too easily. After a few days of chatting, Tristan and I agreed to meet for coffee at the Bean Shed, the town's sole coffee shop. It was a bright Saturday morning, and I arrived early, nerves jangling like loose change in my stomach. I picked a table near the window, the sun warming my back as I sipped an overpriced latte and tried not to overthink everything. At exactly 10 a.m., Tristan walked in. He looked just like his photos, which was honestly a relief. Tall, clean-shaven, wearing a blue plaid shirt and faded jeans. He spotted me immediately, waved, and slid into the seat across from me. The first few minutes were textbook perfect. We talked about our favorite books, our mutual hatred of mayonnaise, and how both of us had once gotten lost in the same corn maze at the Waverly County Fair. I found myself relaxing, even laughing. Maybe, just maybe, this wouldn't be a disaster. But somewhere around the 30-minute mark, the conversation took a sharp, uncomfortable turn. "So, where do you see yourself in 5 years?" Tristan asked, leaning in like he was about to unlock some grand secret. I blinked, caught off guard. I don't know. Maybe managing the bookstore? Traveling a little more? Nothing too crazy." He nodded like he was taking notes in his head. "That's good," he said. "Me, I have it all mapped out." Then he pulled out a small, leather-bound notebook from his jacket pocket. At first, I thought he was joking. But no. He flipped it open to a page titled Life Plan. In neat, tiny handwriting, he had outlined his entire future. Age 30, married. Age 31, first child, boy preferably. Age 33, second child, girl. Age 35, promotion to regional manager. Age 40, by vacation home in Colorado. Age 45, early retirement planning. I stared at the notebook, a weird mix of amusement and horror bubbling up in my chest. "That's very organized," I said carefully. He beamed like I'd just complimented a work of art. "I don't believe in wasting time," Tristan said. "Life's too short not to have a plan." I nodded slowly, trying to keep my face neutral. A little planning was fine, admirable, even. But this felt less like ambition, and more like a checklist I was supposed to slot myself into. Still, I didn't want to be rude. I steered the conversation back to lighter topics, favorite movies, weird childhood pets, but Tristan kept circling back to the plan. Every answer I gave, he weighed against some invisible rubric. Did I want kids? Eventually. Was I open to moving for his career? Depends. Did I believe husbands should be the final decision makers? Absolutely not. With every hesitant answer, his smile tightened a little more. After an hour, we finished our coffees. I thought maybe that would be it, a polite goodbye, a mutual ghosting. But Tristan stood up and said, "Mind if we walk a little?" I hesitated. The bean shed was in the heart of Waverly Bluff's tiny downtown, surrounded by antique shops, a bakery, and the library. Plenty of people around. Safe enough, right? I agreed. We strolled down Main Street, making stilted small talk. He asked if I believed in traditional gender roles. I mumbled something non-committal. He asked if I was willing to homeschool children. I said I hadn't thought that far ahead. Each question felt less like curiosity and more like an interrogation. Finally, we reached the edge of the park. I was just about to make an excuse and bail when he stopped suddenly, tucked his hands into his jacket pockets, and said, "You're not exactly what I pictured, but I think you'll do." I laughed, hoping he was joking. He wasn't. His face was deadly serious. "I'm offering you a chance to be part of something bigger than yourself, Kirsty," he said. "My life. My legacy." I stumbled back a step, heart hammering. "Tristan," I said, trying to keep my voice calm. "We just met." He shrugged. "Better to get the paperwork started early. Save time." I blinked. "Paperwork?" He nodded, pulling out another sheet of paper from his notebook, a literal contract. It outlined expectations, weekly meal plans, budget management, childcare duties, behavior standards. I didn't read much past that. I shoved the paper back at him and backed away. "Thanks, but no thanks," I said, voice shaking. "You're looking for a bride, not a partner." He frowned, clearly confused why I wasn't swooning. "You'll regret this," he said. "Maybe. But not today." I turned and walked away as fast as I could without outright sprinting. When I glanced back once, he was still standing there, watching me. Not moving. Just staring. I blocked Tristan's number that afternoon. Deleted the app. Went back to reading romance novels where red flags didn't get mistaken for destiny. For a few weeks, I was jumpy. Anytime I saw a blue plaid shirt or a dusty brown car, my stomach would knot up. But he never showed up again. Maybe he found someone else to fit into his blueprint. Maybe he moved on to the next small town. I was 24 when I met Nathan. Fresh out of a brutal breakup, raw and reckless, I was the perfect target without even realizing it. I lived in a sleepy town called Maple Hollow, Montana. We didn't have much, a single grocery store, a gas station that doubled as the town diner, and a library that smelled like dusty carpet, but it was home. Quiet. Safe. Or so I thought. After months of isolation, my roommate, Lila, convinced me to try online gaming. Just something to take your mind off everything, she said, tossing me her old headset. I wasn't a gamer by any stretch, but I figured why not? It beat crying into my cereal every night. I started small. Cozy games. Word puzzles. Then one night, I stumbled into a team match on a fantasy MMORPG called Silver Realms. That's where I first met Nathan. Nathan's voice was low, smooth, and somehow comforting. He was hilarious too, quick with a joke that would have me laughing until my sides hurt. We started teaming up regularly, and soon, our conversations drifted away from game strategy into life stories. He told me he was from a town called Willow Springs, Idaho, and that he was studying environmental engineering at a university out there. He said he loved hiking, woodworking, and writing poetry he was too shy to share. He made himself sound like a living, breathing rom-com lead. And I, desperate for something good, believed every word. We moved our conversations over to Instagram. His profile was sparse, a few nature photos, a blurry picture of a dog he said was his, but nothing set off alarms. He said he was private, not big on social media. Seemed reasonable. Weeks passed. We started texting all day, calling each other every night. Nathan became my constant. My confidant. My escape hatch from the suffocating loneliness of Maple Hollow. Then came the night he confessed he was falling for me. I remember staring at my phone, heart pounding. Was I crazy to feel it too? We hadn't even met, but it felt real. More real than anything had in years. I told him I felt the same. From there, things escalated fast. We started planning to meet in person. Nathan said he couldn't wait to visit Montana. He loved small towns, he insisted. He even joked about bringing me wildflowers he'd pick himself on the drive over. But when the day came, he canceled last minute. His excuse was a family emergency, something about his father collapsing and being rushed to the hospital. I didn't even question it. Instead, I sent him a care package. Cookies, a flannel shirt I thought he'd like, a handwritten letter. I spent hours fussing over it. He texted back a photo with the box in his lap, thanking me, saying he'd never had anyone care for him like that before. I was hooked. A month later, Nathan said he was struggling with tuition payments. His grants fell through, he said. His parents couldn't help. He was embarrassed even telling me, but he didn't know who else to turn to. I didn't have much. I worked part-time at the Maple Hollow Library and picked up shifts at the diner on weekends. But I couldn't stand the thought of him losing everything. So, I wired him $500. He promised he'd pay me back within a month. Spoiler, he didn't. Instead, the requests kept coming. Smaller amounts at first. A tank of gas here. A textbook there. Then bigger, car repairs, a new laptop for classes. Every time, he had a reason. And every time, I told myself it was temporary. That he loved me, and love meant helping each other. Meanwhile, I started noticing cracks. His Instagram remained suspiciously empty. He dodged FaceTime calls. He always had a reason why he couldn't visit. A sick relative, a broken car, finals. When I reverse searched the dog photo he posted, it turned out to be a stock image from a pet adoption website. I confronted him about it once. He apologized profusely, said he lied because he was insecure, that he thought I wouldn't like the real him, that he was just a normal guy, not some polished Instagram model. I forgave him. Of course I did. I wanted to believe the story, not the evidence. Months rolled by. Then came the night that shattered everything. It was late, after 1 a.m., and I couldn't sleep. I opened Silver Realms, hoping to find Nathan online. Instead, I stumbled into a public voice chat. A few people were laughing, swapping stories about bad online relationships. And there it was, Nathan's voice. Only he wasn't Nathan. He was using a different name, Chase, and bragging about how easy it was to scam desperate girls from nowhere towns. My stomach flipped. I sat there frozen as he detailed how he juggled multiple women at once, stringing them along for money, gifts, even flights. Someone asked if he ever felt guilty. Nah, he said, laughing. They fall for it because they want to. I'm just giving them what they need. I logged out without saying a word. I don't remember much of what happened next. Just a lot of shaking, crying, rage so thick I could barely breathe. The next morning, I blocked him on everything. Instagram, phone, Silver Realms, even Venmo. 3 hours later, he showed up at my house. I was sitting on the porch swing, when I saw the dusty gray Subaru crawl up my gravel driveway. My heart stopped. Nathan, or whatever his real name was, climbed out. He was shorter than I'd imagined. Thinner too. His hair was greasy, jeans torn at the knees. He looked nothing like the voice that had lulled me to sleep for months. He smiled wide, like we were old friends. "Hey, Em," he called. I bolted inside and locked the door. He pounded on the screen door for 20 minutes, yelling that he just wanted to talk, that he loved me, that I was making a mistake. Then he got angry, started calling me names, threatened to take back everything he gave me, which was laughable since I had given him everything. I called the sheriff's office. By the time Deputy Carter rolled up in his cruiser, Nathan was gone. They found him later that night, camped out behind the abandoned grain mill outside town. Turns out, he wasn't from Idaho. He wasn't even a college student. His real name was Trevor Marks. He had a record a mile long: fraud, theft, harassment. He'd been drifting across states, targeting women through dating apps and gaming platforms. Maple Hollow was just his latest stop. Deputy Carter said I was lucky. Some of his previous victims hadn't been so fortunate. It's been almost a year since that night. I moved out of Maple Hollow. Started fresh in a bigger town where no one knows my name. I still game sometimes, but only with friends I trust. My heart's a little tougher these days. My circle's smaller. And I triple-check every story I'm told. I still think about Nathan, Trevor, sometimes. Not because I miss him, but because I almost let him destroy me. And because there are 100 other small towns out there, filled with girls like I used to be. Dreamers. Believers. Targets. I never thought much about fate until 3 weeks ago, when everything I knew about trust shattered in a single night. My name's Ryan, and this all went down near Lost Prairie, Nebraska. I had just started using Chispa, a dating app geared toward Latino singles, partly because my buddy Jorge wouldn't stop harassing me about how he met his fiancée there. At the time, I was living in a crumbling rental house on the outskirts of Lost Prairie. Rent was cheap, the neighbors kept to themselves, and I mostly spent my days driving for DoorDash to make ends meet. Life wasn't glamorous, but it was mine. One lazy Sunday afternoon, I matched with Mia. Her profile was simple: a few smiling selfies, a picture of her dog, a scruffy mutt with one ear flopped over, and a bio that read, "Bookworm. Bad cook. Good company." We clicked instantly. She wasn't like the others who seemed to treat chatting like a chore. Mia was funny, smart, and had this way of making even the most mundane topics feel like an adventure. By the time Sunday evening rolled around, Mia asked if I could give her a lift to her friend's house in Winter Hollow, a tiny town just outside of Lost Prairie. It was on my route anyway, and honestly, I didn't mind the excuse to see her in person. She said her friend's place was near the old grain elevator on Sycamore Road, a landmark you couldn't miss even if you tried. I pulled up to Mia's house around 5:45 p.m. It was a weathered one-story place with peeling white paint and a front porch that sagged in the middle. She came running out before I could even kill the engine, waving and smiling like we'd known each other for years. Mia was even prettier in person. Her curly dark hair bounced as she jogged to the passenger side. She wore a faded denim jacket over a floral sundress and beat-up sneakers that had clearly seen better days. She climbed in, and for the first few minutes, we just laughed about how awkward it felt to meet someone from an app in real life. The drive to Winter Hollow was uneventful. We talked about everything from terrible Netflix shows to our mutual hatred of cilantro. She made me promise to take her to the flea market next weekend if this friend thing didn't work out. When we got there, Mia directed me to a house tucked behind a small Baptist church. A few beat-up trucks were parked out front, and I could hear the faint thump of country music from inside. She gave me a quick hug before hopping out, promising to text me later. I watched her disappear inside, and then got back to dashing. The evening blended into a blur of fast food bags and GPS directions. Around 8 p.m., my phone buzzed. It was Mia. "Mia, hey, can you come get me in about an hour? We're heading to her mom's house now. Shouldn't be long." "No problem." I finished a few more deliveries and hung out at a gas station on Highway 14, sipping a burnt cup of coffee and scrolling through memes on my phone. Then, around 8:45 p.m., another message popped up. This one sent a jolt of panic through my chest. "Mia, need help. Got in a gray pickup. Wrong direction. Please hurry." Attached was her live location, bouncing around somewhere deep into the farmlands west of Winter Hollow. My heart hammered against my ribs as I threw the coffee into the trash and floored it out of the gas station parking lot. The roads narrowed fast. Asphalt gave way to cracked gravel paths lined by endless cornfields. Every few seconds, I'd glance at her location creeping farther and farther away from me. I turned onto a road I didn't even know existed, Old Mill Lane, and spotted a gray pickup truck pulling out of a rundown liquor store. I recognized Mia's tiny figure in the passenger seat, her head ducked low like she was trying to hide. Without thinking, I maneuvered my clunky Kia Soul behind them. My tires kicked up dust clouds in the fading light. I tried to stay a few car lengths back, heart racing, hands gripping the steering while so tightly my knuckles turned white. The truck suddenly jerked to the side of the road and stopped. I slammed on my brakes and pulled into the opposite lane, boxing them in. Before I could even throw the car in park, Mia's door flew open, and she bolted toward me. She dove into the passenger seat, sobbing, her hands trembling so badly she could barely close the door. I didn't wait. I hit the gas and peeled away, leaving the pickup truck and its mystery driver choking on our dust. Mia was inconsolable. Between gasping sobs, she managed to tell me bits and pieces. The family friend, who had offered her a ride, wasn't a friend at all. He'd gotten aggressive the second they left her friend's house, driving her deeper into nowhere with every mile. She tried asking him to turn around, but he just laughed and cranked up the radio. The only reason she was able to send her location was because he was too busy fiddling with his phone to notice her typing under the seat. I didn't ask for more details. Not then. I just kept driving until we were back in Lost Prairie, back under the comforting glow of the streetlights. We parked outside my place, where Mia collapsed into my arms, still shaking. "I don't know what would have happened if you hadn't come," she whispered. I didn't know either. And honestly, I didn't want to think about it. I offered to call the police, but she begged me not to. Said she just wanted to forget about it, to pretend it never happened. I understood that kind of fear, the terror that if you poked the nightmare too hard, it might come back to life. Instead, I called my sister, who lived a few blocks over. She showed up with a blanket, hot chocolate, and a fierce hug that seemed to ground Mia in a way I couldn't. Mia ended up staying with my sister that night. Just knowing she wasn't alone made it easier to breathe. The next morning, we filed a report with the local sheriff's office. Mia was scared, but they took it seriously, especially when she showed them the live location screenshots and described the gray pickup. They promised to investigate, but small towns have a way of letting things slip through the cracks. As far as I know, they never found the guy. Weeks have passed since that night, but it still haunts me. Every time I drive down Old Mill Lane, my stomach knots up. Every gray pickup truck I see makes my pulse spike. Mia and I still talk almost every day. We're not dating, not yet, anyway. But there's something between us now, something forged in fear and adrenaline and shared survival. If you had told me a year ago that I'd be trying online dating, I would have laughed right in your face. I always figured dating apps were for people way cooler, or way more desperate, than me. But after seeing a few of my friends meet serious partners online, one even getting married last fall, I figured, why not? Besides, my Saturday nights were starting to look suspiciously like Netflix marathons and takeout reruns. It was time. So one rainy Thursday, curled up on my couch with a pint of cookie dough ice cream, I caved. I downloaded the app everyone was raving about and started swiping. At first, it was exactly what you'd expect. Cringe bios, bathroom selfies, awkward small talk that died after 2 messages. But then I matched with him. Let's call him Caleb. Caleb didn't have that try-hard vibe most guys had. He seemed normal, worked in tech, liked hiking and dogs, had a sense of humor that actually made me snort once while scrolling through his profile. We clicked fast, easy banner, late-night convos, the whole thing. After about a week of texting, he asked if I wanted to meet up. We settled on this tiny cafe downtown in Camden, Arkansas, a cozy place with brick walls, vintage couches, and overpriced coffee that was somehow worth every penny. I showed up early because anxiety is my middle name. I snagged a window seat and kept fidgeting with my sleeves, half expecting him to be a no-show. But right on time, Caleb walked in. And he looked exactly like his pictures. Tall, dark hair, easy smile. I felt my nerves melt a little. The date itself was, honestly, great. We talked for hours about everything from favorite conspiracy theories to the best pizza toppings. It felt natural. No weird lulls, no awkward silences. When it was finally time to leave, he suggested we hang out again soon. I said yes, feeling that rare little spark of hope. Maybe, just maybe, this could be something. A few days later, I was wandering through the local mart trying to remember if I needed milk when I spotted him. Caleb, in the fruit section, looking extremely serious about avocados. At first, it felt like a funny coincidence. We laughed, chatted for a bit, and he joked that our second date should just be judging produce together. I laughed it off, thinking it was cute. Small town. Small world. Stuff like this happens, right? Then Sunday rolled around. I decided to hit my favorite trail for a morning jog. It was one of those crisp, clear days where the air feels like it's scrubbing your soul clean. Halfway through my run, earbuds in, I spotted someone sitting on a bench, scrolling on his phone. Guess who? Caleb. Again. He looked up, spotted me, and laughed. Said he was just out enjoying the weather, soaking up the fall vibes. We chatted briefly before I continued jogging, brushing it off. Still a little weird, right? But it didn't stop. It became a pattern. I'd be grabbing a burrito at my favorite lunch spot, and there he was 2 tables over, browsing for books at the indie bookstore. Oh hey, Caleb in the sci-fi aisle. Even once at my gym, dripping sweat and feeling like a gremlin, and there he was casually doing bicep curls. At first, I kept telling myself it was just coincidence. Camden wasn't exactly New York City. Maybe we just had similar tastes. Maybe it was nothing. But deep down, my gut was screaming at me that something was off. One night, I decided to test it. Instead of taking my usual route home, I zigzagged through back streets, made random turns, even ducked into a gas station for no reason. Took me an extra 15 minutes to get home. As I was about to cross the last street before my building, I spotted him. Caleb. Across the road, pretending to scroll on his phone. We locked eyes. He gave a small wave. I didn't wave back. I just kept walking, heart hammering, mind racing. That's when it finally clicked. This wasn't coincidence. This wasn't cute. This was deliberate. After that, I went into full stealth mode. I stopped posting real-time Instagram stories, locked down all my social media, turned my location settings off, changed up my routines, new grocery store, different jogging routes, switched gyms. It was inconvenient as hell, but the anxiety wasn't worth it. For a little while it worked. No random sightings, no awkward run-ins. I let myself breathe again, started to feel normal, until one Sunday morning. I swung by my favorite little coffee and bagel place, feeling good, headphones in. I grabbed a table by the window, pulled out a book, and started reading. And then, I saw him. Caleb. 2 tables over. Pretending to be engrossed in a newspaper. My stomach dropped. I stared at my coffee, heart racing, trying to figure out what to do. I thought about confronting him, asking him straight up why he kept showing up. But deep down I was scared. Confronting him meant acknowledging how bad it had gotten. Confronting him meant risking what might happen if he didn't like being called out. So instead, I packed up my stuff, threw away my coffee, and left without looking back. After that, I got serious. I changed my phone number, deleted old accounts, made my socials private, warned my friends, filed a police report, just to have something on record in case things escalated. Thankfully, they never did. After a few tense months, Caleb disappeared. No more sightings. No more ghostly shadows at the edge of my errands. Gone. It's been a couple years now. I'm more careful about what I share online. Way more careful about who I trust. I still use dating apps sometimes, but my guard is sky high. And if my gut says something's off, I listen. Every time. The thing about stalkers is, they don't always look like villains. Sometimes they look like the guy you laughed with over coffee. The guy who made you feel seen when you were lonely. The guy who, for a week or two, made you think maybe you'd finally found someone good. Back in 2015, when I was about 29, I got a random friend request on Facebook from a dude named Tyler. He seemed harmless enough, average looking, a few mutuals, no big red flags. We started chatting, and after a couple of days, he asked if I wanted to grab coffee sometime. I figured why not? It was just coffee. We ended up going out twice. And honestly, it felt good. Tyler was easy to talk to, funny in that slightly self-deprecating way that made you feel like you could relax around him. I thought we clicked. Then came the plan for our third date. We picked this cute little cafe downtown in Crossett, Arkansas, the kind of place with fairy lights strung up outside and way too expensive lattes. I got there early, snagged a table by the window and waited. And waited. And waited. 2 hours later, I finally accepted the obvious. Tyler had ghosted me. No call. No text. Nothing. I sat there pretending to read the same page of a book over and over, my coffee long cold. It stung, not going to lie. But whatever. I told myself it was just another dating app casualty. Move on. Except Tyler didn't stay gone. Almost 3 months after he ghosted me, he started popping up again. Unblocking me on Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat. Sending casual, "Hey, you" messages like nothing had happened. I guess part of me was lonely. Curious. Maybe just bored. So like an idiot, I let him back in. But I was cautious this time. At least, I thought I was. Spoiler, I wasn't cautious enough. Turns out, Tyler had been dating a bunch of other girls the whole time we were talking. When I found out, that was it for me. I dumped him right then and there. Figured he could have his little side chicks. I wasn't about to be anyone's backup plan. I thought that was the end of it. It wasn't. About 5 months of blissful silence passed. Then, December 2017 rolled around, and my phone started blowing up. At first, it was just a few texts. Then a few calls. Then it escalated. Tyler started calling me 80+ times a day across every platform you can imagine. Regular calls, WhatsApp, DMs, you name it. Hundreds of texts. Most of them alternating between desperate apologies and furious rants. I wish I were exaggerating. At one point, he even started calling my new boyfriend. And my boss. Over and over. I had just started working at a marketing firm in Crossit in early 2018. One afternoon, I got pulled into a meeting with HR and the company's risk management team. They sat me down, slid a thick folder across the table, and told me flat out, "You need to get a lawyer. We're pressing charges against Tyler for harassment and stalking." Not exactly the Tuesday chat I was expecting. I felt like the walls were closing in. Embarrassed, angry, terrified, but mostly exhausted. I was so tired of looking over my shoulder, flinching every time my phone buzzed. In Arkansas, harassment tied to a protection order is a criminal offense. You can get slapped with a hefty fine, or even up to 5 years behind bars. So, I started gathering everything. Screenshots, voicemails, call logs, social media messages. My lawyer stacked them together like a house of cards. Meanwhile, my company handed over all their internal security footage. The times Tyler had followed me to work, loitered near the parking lot, stared into the lobby through the glass doors like a ghost waiting to be let inside. And then karma, sweet perfect karma, showed up. In April 2018, Tyler got himself arrested. Not because of me, not directly. He got pulled over for speeding, and when the cops searched his car, they found cocaine and meth stashed in the glove compartment. Real genius, right? The harassment charges from my case just added fuel to the fire. Fast forward to Christmas that year. I'm sitting at my parents' house, sipping cocoa by the fire, when my lawyer calls. Tyler got sentenced. 15 years for drug possession. Another 5 for stalking and harassment. 20 years total. When I hung up the phone, I cried. Not because I was sad. Not because I pitied him. But because for the first time in what felt like forever, I could breathe. Really breathe. You always think you'll see it coming. That crazy will wear a flashing neon sign. But the truth is, it never does. Tyler didn't have wild eyes or a creepy grin. He looked normal. Sounded normal. Until he wasn't. And by the time the mask slips, you're already tangled up in something so dark you can barely find your way out. I know it sounds dramatic. But even now, years later, I double-check my locks every night. I memorize license plates parked near my building. I never post my location in real time on social media. Once you've been hunted, even by someone who claims they loved you, it rewires your brain. It stains you. You don't ever fully go back to who you were before. Maybe that's a good thing. Maybe caution is just survival dressed up in a smarter outfit. Either way, I'm still here. Still living. Still breathing. And Tyler? Well, Tyler's got 20 long years to think about what he did. Enjoy prison, buddy. And for real, don't drop the soap. Back when I was around 24, I picked up a job scooping ice cream at this tiny mom-and-pop shop in Helena, Arkansas. It was the kind of town where time felt like it moved half-speed. Super chill gig, honestly. The owners were this sweet older couple who treated us more like grandkids than employees, and the customers were mostly locals who tipped in crumpled dollar bills and loose change. That's where I met one of my closest friends ever, Maddie. Maddie was 22, just a couple years younger than me, and honestly, she felt like the little sister I never had. She had this infectious laugh that could crack even the grumpiest customer, and she rocked this platinum blonde bob that made her look like she belonged in an indie music video. We always tried to line up our shifts together, snagging the evening slots. Day shifts were a bloodbath with the summer tourists, but nights? Nights were ours. Most evenings, we'd hang out behind the counter between rushes, swapping stories about life, bad Tinder dates, and whatever weirdness was happening in town. At the time, I was happily locked in a long-term relationship, so dating apps were a total mystery to me. But Maddie? She lived in the trenches of Tinder. Every shift, it felt like she had a new story to tell. She'd pull out her phone between customers, and we'd cackle over the insane pickup lines dudes would send her. Stuff like, "Are you a magician? Because every time I look at you, everyone else disappears." Real original, right? One night, we were squeezed behind the counter, half-heartedly wiping down already clean surfaces, when she showed me a new guy she had matched with. His name was Aaron, supposedly 29. He had this whole artsy vibe going, long dark hair pulled into a messy bun, neatly trimmed beard, round glasses that gave him this, I read obscure poetry look. Honestly, the guy looked like he had stepped out of a moody indie film. My gut reaction? Catfish alert. But Maddie was glowing. Giddy. I didn't want to kill her excitement. So I kept my cynical mouth shut and just smiled, telling her to have fun. She said they were planning to meet up the next evening. I gave her a dramatic wink and wished her luck as we closed up the shop. The next night, around 10:30 p.m., I shot her a quick text just to see how the date had gone. No answer. I figured, hey, maybe things were going well. I mean, if she was still out with him, that was a good sign, right? I crashed early, thinking I'd hear all about it the next day during our shift. We were supposed to work together the next evening. I clocked in, tied my apron, and started wiping down the counters, waiting for her to breeze through the door with some wild story. But Maddie never showed. Totally not like her. She was the 10 minutes early kind of person, organized in a way that made my chaotic self jealous. After 15 minutes, I tried calling her. Straight to voicemail. Texts? Left on read. I told myself maybe her phone had died. Maybe she was running late. But after half an hour of pacing behind the counter, that sick feeling started gnawing at my stomach. Something was wrong. Really wrong. I called the police. Turns out, Maddie's mom had already reported her missing earlier that day. She never made it home after her date. I remember this cold wave crashing over me when the officer told me that. The rest of the shift was a blur. I barely remember scooping ice cream, barely remember smiling at customers. All I could think about was Maddie. Where was she? Was she scared? Was she hurt? Days dragged into weeks. No news. No sightings. Nothing. I showed up to work, but everything felt hollow without her. I kept texting her phone like an idiot, even though I knew she wasn't going to answer. I stayed in touch with her mom, who somehow stayed stronger than I could have ever been. But the helplessness was eating me alive. The cops seemed stuck, spinning their wheels. 2 weeks slipped by. Then 3. Still no arrests. No solid leads. It was like she had just vanished. I couldn't take it anymore. I needed to do something. Anything. So I came up with a plan. A reckless, maybe even dangerous plan. I made myself a Tinder account. I picked a few decent pictures, the ones where the lighting did all the heavy lifting, and slapped together a profile. I wasn't looking for Mr. Right. I was hunting for Aaron. I swiped like a madwoman. Left, left, left. My thumb cramped up from scrolling. But then finally there he was. Same face. Same artsy look. Only now he was calling himself Mason. Cute. Real original. My hands were shaking as I swiped right. We matched immediately. He even sent the first message. My stomach twisted into knots. But I replied, throwing out a ridiculously flirty message that made me want to crawl out of my own skin. Desperate times, right? He bought it. Hook, line, and sinker. We chatted for a bit, him dropping the same artsy lines Maddie had laughed about. Then he suggested grabbing drinks. I said yes before my brain could second-guess me. The next night, we met at this grimy little dive bar tucked on the edge of Helena. The kind of place with sticky floors and neon signs buzzing like angry bees. I spotted him immediately. Tucked away in a corner booth, nursing a drink. He looked exactly like his photos, which somehow made it all more chilling. I plastered on the fakest smile you've ever seen and sat down across from him. We talked for maybe an hour. It felt like forever. Every second was a battle to keep my face neutral. I wanted to scream at him. I wanted to grab him by the collar and demand to know what he had done to Maddie. But I knew if I spooked him, I'd lose whatever slim chance I had at getting answers. At one point, Mason leaned in and asked if I wanted to come back to his place. I forced a laugh and mumbled something about an early shift the next morning. Then I bolted. The second I hit the street, I called 911, hands shaking so hard I almost dropped the phone. I got patched through to the detective handling Maddie's case. Told them everything, the fake name, the Tinder match, the creepy date. I expected them to brush me off. But to my relief, they took it seriously. I handed over screenshots, chat logs, everything. A week later, they arrested him. Real name? Not Mason. Not Aaron. Some other alias he had used before. He confessed. Said it was an accident. That he didn't mean for it to happen. But he still led them to where he left Maddie. Life moved on around me after that. Somehow. I still worked at the ice cream shop for a while. Still wiped down counters. Still scooped cones for laughing kids. But there was a heavy piece missing that nothing could replace. Finding out the truth helped, in a way. At least we weren't left wondering. At least Maddie's mom could lay her to rest. But some nights, when the shop gets quiet and the summer heat buzzes in through the open windows, I still expect to hear Maddie's laugh behind me. Still half-turn, expecting to see her twirling a scoop in the air like she used to, daring me to catch it. I never do. Lately, I've been messing around with Hinge. You know, that dating app that's supposed to be designed to be deleted. I'm 32 now, and honestly, I've been single longer than I'd like to admit. I used to roast dating apps nonstop. Thought they were just glorified swiping machines for hookups or weirdos. But my buddy Marcus? He wouldn't shut up about how he met his girlfriend there. He even proposed last summer, smug as hell about it. So one boring Thursday night, I caved. I downloaded Hinge, slapped together a profile with a few decent pics, answered some of the dumb prompts, and braced myself for disappointment. At first, it was exactly what I expected, a graveyard of awkward convos and cringe matches. And then I matched with her. Let's call her Sophia. Right from the start, Sophia and I clicked. Hard. We both nerd out over the same weird horror podcasts, laughed about our mutual obsession with bad diner coffee, and even had a shared love for building ridiculous Lego sets for stress relief. It didn't feel forced like most online chats. It was easy, natural. After about a week of late-night texts and inside jokes, we decided to meet up. I booked us a table at this little Italian spot not far from my place in Kingsland, Arkansas, a town so small you could blink and miss it. Dinner went way better than I dared to hope. Sophia was funny, sharp, even cuter in person. She had this easy laugh that made you feel like you were telling the best story in the world, even if you were just rambling about your dog puking on your shoes. When the check came, she offered to split it, which somehow made me like her even more. I went home that night with a stupid grin, thinking maybe, just maybe, something real was brewing. For our second date, we decided to keep it chill. Sophia would come over to my place, and I'd cook. Now, not to brag, but I can throw down in the kitchen. My mom had me whipping up homemade biscuits by the time I was 10, and my lasagna is practically a local legend among my friends. Sophia rolled up around 7:30 p.m., wearing this oversized sweater that somehow made her look even cuter, all cozy and casual like she belonged there. We ate creamy garlic pasta with grilled chicken, sipped wine, and talked about everything and nothing for hours. At some point, she asked if she could see the rest of my house. I was weirdly proud to show her around. I had worked my butt off for that little 3-bedroom ranch. My office was still half finished. The guest room was a dumping ground for laundry I kept promising to fold, and my garage was, well, a lost cause. She smiled at everything. Said it felt homey. I was pretty much floating by the time. She said she had to head out early for work the next morning. We hugged at the door, a long, lingering hug that made my heart do somersaults, and she left. A few minutes later, I shot her a text. Had a great time. Hope we can hang again soon. I figured she'd reply quick. She usually did. But nothing. Hours passed. I tried not to overthink it. Maybe she crashed early. Maybe her phone died. Eventually, I passed out, dreaming about third dates and future Lego builds. Sometime around 4 a.m., I woke up groggy as hell. My bladder was screaming for mercy, so I stumbled toward the bathroom, half asleep. Did my business, washed my hands, and was about to faceplant back into bed when I heard it, a clatter from the kitchen. Now, reminder, I live alone. No roommates. No pets. No reason for anything to be making noise at 4 in the freaking morning. Instant full-body panic. I tiptoed toward the kitchen, heart pounding so loud I thought whoever was there would hear it. When I turned the corner, I stopped dead. The kitchen was wrecked. Papers scattered everywhere. Drawers ripped open. Pans dumped onto the floor. Like someone had been tearing the place apart looking for something. I just stood there, frozen. Out of the corner of my eye, I caught a flash of movement. Someone darting through the hallway toward the guest room. My stomach dropped straight to the floor. Without thinking, I grabbed my phone and called 911, whispering into the receiver like some horror movie victim. The dispatcher kept me on the line, telling me to stay put and stay quiet. While I waited for the cops, some dumb part of me thought it would be smart to check the guest room, like I was suddenly action hero material. I crept down the hall and nudged the door open with my foot. Empty. Just the window swinging open in the breeze. Whoever had been there was gone. The police rolled up about 15 minutes later, lights flashing, guns drawn. They swept the house and the yard, but of course, the intruder was long gone. After a quick look around, I realized a bunch of stuff was missing too. My tablet. A couple watches I actually liked. Some cash I'd stashed in a kitchen drawer. Gone. The officers took my statement, nodded a lot, and said they'd do what they could. By the time they left, the sun was creeping over the horizon. I crashed on the couch for maybe an hour before dragging myself up for work. Still half asleep, I grabbed my phone, hoping to see a text from Sophia. Still nothing. Feeling stupid and desperate, I decided to call her. That's when I noticed her number had straight up blocked me. It hit me all at once, ugly and brutal. Sophia wasn't some sweet, quirky girl who liked horror podcasts and Lego sets. She was a scam artist. Her Hinge profile? Gone. Deleted. Her Instagram? Non-existent. Her TikTok she had once sent me? Dead link. It was like she had never existed at all. Over the next few days, I pieced it together. Sophia, or whatever her real name was, had probably cased my house during our tour. Saw the spots where I tucked away valuables. Saw how easy it would be to sneak in. She probably unlocked the guest room window when I wasn't looking. And while I was passed out, she, or her partner, came back for the score. The worst part? I hadn't even thought to set my security system that night. Kingsland is the kind of place where you still leave your doors unlocked sometimes. I had gotten lazy, complacent, and she knew it. I spent weeks after that feeling like an idiot, double-checking every window, jumping at every creak in the house. I couldn't even look at dating apps without feeling my stomach twist. I kept thinking about how easily it could have been worse. What if I had woken up earlier? What if I had walked into the kitchen while she was still there? What if she hadn't come alone? The questions haunted me more than the break-in itself. Eventually, I got a better security system. Cameras, motion lights, the whole works. I made my house a fortress because I had to. And yeah, I deleted Hinge. Maybe forever. I'm not saying dating apps are evil. I know plenty of people who found real love online. But me? I'll take my chances meeting someone the old-fashioned way. Through a friend. At the grocery store. Anywhere but behind a carefully curated profile that can vanish like smoke the second they get what they want. When I look back now, it feels like I'm peering down a dark, endless tunnel. I can barely recognize the girl I used to be. I guess that's what trauma does. It warps your memories until even the good parts seem sinister. I was 20 years old, naive as hell, and way too trusting when I met Jason at the tiny community college in Baxter Springs, Kansas. Back then, I was dragging around the battered remains of a bad relationship, the kind that leaves invisible bruises nobody else can see. Jason seemed like a fresh start. At first, he was a dream. He'd help me carry my textbooks across the cracked sidewalks of our tiny campus, send good morning texts before I even opened my eyes, and slip little notes into my backpack, dumb, cheesy stuff like "You're beautiful," or "Can't wait to see you smile today." I ate it up like a starving dog. After the wreckage of my last relationship, Jason felt like a Disney prince. We started dating within 2 weeks of meeting. I know. Stupid fast. One night, he even pulled out this cheap silver ring from his pocket, not even in a box, and slipped it onto my finger under the flickering lights of the parking lot. He grinned like it was the most romantic thing in the world. I thought, this is it. This is how it happens, right? You meet someone, and it just clicks. Soulmates. Spoiler alert, it wasn't soulmates. It was a slow-motion freefall into hell. The cracks started small. Jason would tell me how much he loved when I wore one particular blue sweater. At first, it felt sweet, like he actually noticed me. But then it turned into comments like, "You should only wear things like that," followed by a subtle side eye if I reached for anything else in my closet. He started pushing greasy fast food every night, even though I had been trying to eat healthier. It wasn't just occasional treats, it was constant. Burgers, fries, milkshakes. I protested once, saying I just wanted a grilled chicken salad, and he pouted like a child until I gave in. It was easier to let him have his way than to deal with the silent treatment that followed. And my friends? Yeah, they started disappearing too. Jason would make these passive-aggressive comments like, "They don't get our love," or, "They're jealous of what we have." It got to the point where I stopped answering their texts because it just wasn't worth the fights that would erupt afterward. The first real, oh no moment happened about 3 months in. I was buried in a huge take-home exam for my anatomy class. Headphones in, notes spread out across my tiny dorm room. Jason burst in without knocking, demanding I come with him to some political club meeting he was obsessed with. I told him no, gently at first, then more firmly. Without warning, he stormed over and slammed my laptop shut, right on my fingers. The pain shot up my arm like a jolt of electricity. I just sat there, stunned, staring at him. He didn't even apologize. Just stood there, towering over me, and said, "If you loved me, you'd support me." I should have left right then, but I didn't. I went with him, hand throbbing, heart screaming. Once Jason realized he could get away with hurting me, he stopped pretending altogether. If he wanted sex, we had sex, whether I was in the mood or not. If he craved midnight fast food, I was eating fries whether I was hungry or sick to my stomach. If he decided a certain outfit made me perfect, then that outfit became my uniform, day in and day out. It didn't matter what I wanted. It only mattered what Jason wanted. One night, after a brutal shift bussing tables at this dingy seafood shack on the edge of town, I came home exhausted and starving. I asked, begged, Jason to pick up something healthy on his way over. Just grilled chicken and steamed veggies. Something, anything that wasn't dipped in grease. He showed up grinning, arms full of McDonald's bags. Before I could even say anything, my manager, a nosy but well-meaning guy, joked, "What, trying to fatten her up so no one else wants her?" Jason laughed. Exactly. It was a joke to him. Just a throwaway comment. But it lodged itself deep inside me like a splinter. That night, something inside me cracked. That was the moment my binge eating disorder really rooted itself. Even now, years later, it's a battle I fight every damn day. Fast forward 3 miserable years. I finally grew a backbone and told Jason I wanted out. I thought, stupidly, that it would be ugly but manageable. I was so wrong. When Jason came over to grab the last of his stuff from my tiny apartment, he lost it. He tried to strangle me right there in the hallway, hands clamped around my throat, like he was trying to snuff me out like a candle. I remember my brain going completely blank with terror. And like the trauma-bonded mess I was, I took him back a week later. After that, everything got darker. It was like that one act of violence broke something inside him, or maybe it shattered the last piece of humanity he was clinging to. From then on, if I said no to sex, to anything, he didn't hesitate. He hit me. Not punches, at least not at first. Slaps. Shoves. Anything to remind me that my body wasn't mine anymore. After a while, I learned it was easier to just go limp and let it happen. I stopped feeling like a person altogether. I became furniture. An object he could use, move, shove into the closet when I displeased him. And yes, he literally shoved me into the coat closet sometimes. The light switch was on the outside. He'd lock me in there, laughing from the living room while I sat in the dark, hyperventilating, trying not to cry too loudly. I'm still terrified of the dark to this day. It sounds childish, I know. But trauma rewires your brain in ways you can't just logic away. Jason had a plan for me. He wanted me fat, terrified, and invisible. He wanted me so broken that no other man would even glance in my direction. If a cashier smiled at me, punishment. If a girl in class said hi, punishment. The final straw, the moment that finally shattered whatever sick loyalty I had left, happened one night when he got me drunk. Way too drunk. And then he did something that had always been a hard limit for me. Even during the worst times, he had respected that boundary. But not that night. He tied me up, gagged me, and when I realized what was happening, all I could do was sob. I still get flashes of that night if something triggers me. It messes me up worse than anything else ever did. Thankfully, and I will be forever grateful for this, my best friend, Emily, basically kicked down the door to my life and dragged me out. We moved my stuff out while Jason was at work. I blocked his number, changed my locks, disappeared. I never went to the cops. Part of me still believed no one would care. Jason had spent years convincing me I was worthless. That if I screamed for help, people would just laugh. It's been a few years now. I'm in therapy for my anxiety, depression, and PTSD. I volunteer at a local shelter now, talking to other women who've lived through nightmares like mine. It's slow. Healing always is. But for the first time in a long time, I feel like me again. Like I'm growing, not just surviving. If you're reading this and you're stuck in something even remotely like what I went through, please listen. You are worth saving. It's terrifying. It's messy. It's not easy. But you are not alone. And you are so much stronger than you think.